game, the Cyhawk series, Iowa at Iowa State. Totals 41.5. We know the story here with the unders 17-3. The unders are in the last 20 games. I will say it seems like home field advantage doesn't really mean anything here. You have Iowa, who's won the last 6 times they've played at Iowa State. And even going back the other way, Iowa State has won the last 2 at Iowa. So very interesting situation we are in with this game here. Mike, I'll start with you. Where are you laying here?
I'm going to take the points with Iowa at 3.5. Look, I think Iowa State is definitely the better team overall. I think that this series and this game just ultimately becomes very, very competitive. My issue with Iowa State is, yes, they got the big win over Kansas State, which is going to be huge in the Big 12. I wasn't all that impressed with them in that game. I thought Kansas State was awful in that contest. I thought Iowa State was very average in that one. So when I look at this matchup, talking about key numbers again, Ken's, I expect lower scoring games here. I think that the 3.5 is extremely valuable. I would not touch it at 3, but I do project this as a tight competitive football game. I would take the points with Iowa.
Yeah, that's the tricky part here because you're kind of like, is Kansas State just a bad football team? Like that might also be the case in the current situation we're in. Emory, are you agreeing here with Mike? Do you like Iowa?
I am going to disagree. I'm going to go with Iowa State. I was more impressed with Iowa State's performance versus South Dakota than what we saw in the opener in week 0 versus Kansas State in Dublin. You know, rainy game, conference game, rivalry game, all of those things, they got the win. But then they had to come back and play a team in South Dakota that's one of the top tier teams in the FCS. Great spot to have a letdown game, right? They went out there and just steamrolled South Dakota and their outstanding quarterback, Aiden Bowman. So to me, they're locked in. And Rocco Beck and what he's been able to do so far this season, this is why we saw them jump 6 spots in the poll. This is a very good football team. They're balanced. They have 2 great tailbacks. Their tight end gets involved in the passing game. Defensively, they fly to the football. They're opportunistic as well. I think all of those factors and a chance to go 2 in a row against Iowa leads me to believe the Cyclones get it done.
Leave it to Emory Hunt to really hype up these high-level FCS teams. Nobody knows them in the back of their pocket like Emory here. Tom, time to break the tie for us. What do you got?
I'm with Mike. This is just based on the number of 3.5. I mean, it feels like these two teams, it comes down to a field goal every year since the mid 80s at the end of the game. But this is going to sound like a joke, but Iowa was vanilla on offense last week. I know what you're asking. How can you tell, right? But they played Albany, and we're from the Albany area. We watched a lot of that game. And what I noticed is they got a new quarterback, Mark Gronowski from South Dakota State, and they didn't have him do hardly anything. 15 pass attempts for 44 yards. They didn't have him running a lot. I think they held back a lot because they didn't have to show. Iowa State had to show more against Kansas State. I think that gives Iowa a little bit of an edge. Listen, this is going to be a close game that comes down to the wire, but if you can get the 3.5, I lean Iowa.
Yeah, just always a tough game to try to bet here. I feel like personally you go with like hedging, or not even hedging, maybe just take some alts like a alt Iowa plus 7.5 and an alt under 40 something, and you get yourself around even money. And that's probably the way that I would go and play this game here.